Darkness engulfs his mind, blood stains his memories, and pain floods his soul. He hears the loud rings of gunfire, the screams of his neighbours. Silence. A knock on the door, banging, shouting, and even more gunfire. He hears his heart thumping against his chest. His fingers turn ice cold. Sweat bleeds down his face. He looks at his mother with fear shattering his eyes, and he asks her, "When can we stop playing at hide and seek?" His mother first smiles at her son's innocence, strokes his hair, and begins sobbing. She chokes on her words, wondering how to answer her son. She stays silent. Her son, silent. The world, silent. We often think of ourselves as warmongers who live for the excitement of combat. Wars have been fought by different groups, races, religions, and nations. These factors have caused wars. However, nations have gone from fighting each other to nations fighting themselves. Civil wars are arguably more destructive than normal wars due to multiple factors, such as civil unrest even after the war, which would later lead to the slaughter of civilians. And what is even more discouraging is the way in which a civil war can play out on the global stage, where an international intervention can turn a domestic war into a global one. Even after a civil war has ended, civil unrest runs rampant in the remaining populace, and violence is persistent on the streets. The Lebanese Civil War is an excellent example of this civil unrest. After a peace treaty was signed, car bombs continued and civilians were the main target. In late December 1991, a car bomb exploded in the neighborhood of Basta. It is estimated around 30 innocent people were killed and 120 wounded. These car bombs would continue until the late 90s. I'd like you to imagine you hear an explosion. It shatters your train of thought, and you see your friends and family broken to pieces, legs there, arms there. You feel the fire snake down your back, your eyes drowning in tears. This civil unrest can be seen in multiple streets and lead to the deaths of family and friends. And yet the world stays silent. Civilians are usually the main target of rebel and government forces, since if you break the people, you break the army. Recently, the Syrian government has been found to have dropped bombs on a civilian school, a primary school, mind you. The slaughter of children, brothers, sisters, friends and loved ones. The heartache caused to these victims' families can never be repaired. The reason these individuals were murdered? For being innocent. I'd like you to imagine if that happened in a Western nation. There would be outcry and demonstrations, yet there have been zero consequences for these actions. Together, we are able to stop the use of these horrific, cruel weapons on people. Together, we are able to end the gut-wrenching cries of suffering. And yet the world stays silent. International intervention makes the conflict much longer and much deadlier. Ever since the beginning of the Cold War, international intervention in civil wars has skyrocketed. Those who pulled the trigger, the United States of America and Russia. These two nations have been interfering in civil wars from Europe to Southeast Asia. One example is Vietnam, arguably the most infamous civil war in modern history. The distinct inhumanity of both the USSR and USA led to the ravaging of thousands of homes and the murder of hundreds. Many people were forced to leave their homes and fight the elements to reach a place of solitude overseas as refugees. If international intervention did not occur, then it would have been likely that the war would not result in the dispositioning of thousands of people. We, as citizens of these nations, can protest our involvement and stop the deaths of hundreds just by making a noise. And yet the world stays silent. The story that I told you at the start was about a little boy. That little boy decided to tell his story, and here he is now. I hope that you are able to make the right decision on this, as we are the future decision makers, and show the world what is right as wrong, and that I cannot do this on my own. So together, we can make change and stop ignorance poisoning the hearts of people. Stop the heartache for families who lost homes, loved ones, memories, and answer their cries for help. Together, we can break the silence. Thank you.